A silly school rumor is about to turn an ordinary crossing into the center of a terrifying mystery. As several girls walk home, one warns that cars tear through the area constantly, while another laughs it off, because naturally, nothing bad ever happens right after someone mocks a warning. The next morning, the students return to the same crossing. After being startled by her friend, one girl admits that she has heard something unsettling about this road, drawing everyone's attention back to the rumor they had nearly laughed away. According to the story, a mysterious spirit sometimes appears at this crossing. The warning sounds like nothing more than local gossip, yet the empty road and the girl's uneasy expression make the rumor feel disturbingly real. The rumor carries an even darker condition. Anyone who sees the strange girl is said to face a sudden and terrible fate. Before the warning can fully sink in, a car rushes into view, and the peaceful morning is shattered. On June 10th at 8:30, Sahara arrives at school and finds the building unnaturally quiet. With no voices in the corridors and no one answering him, he walks toward his classroom, without realizing that something about his existence has already changed. Sahara kicks off his shoes and races through the empty hallway, shouting for his classmates like volume alone can fix the problem. He bounds upstairs with his usual reckless energy, but even that over-the-top entrance earns him absolutely nothing. Bursting into the classroom, Sahara cheerfully greets everyone, yet the teacher and students continue as though he is not there. Only the serious girl seated near the front appears unsettled, leaving Sahara confused by the silence surrounding him. Still clueless, Sahara treats invisibility like a bizarre new superpower and experiments from every ridiculous angle he can imagine. The fun ends when he speaks beside a classmate and gets no reaction at all. Suddenly, the joke is not funny anymore. Sahara approaches Chiaki, the class president praised for her neat handwriting and serious personality. He calls her name from beside her desk. But Chiaki never looks up, confirming that even someone who knows him well cannot sense his presence. Refusing to accept that he is invisible, Sahara leans so close that his face nearly touches Chiaki's and even climbs over her desk. Nothing works. With every failed attempt, he begins to understand that he is no longer standing among his classmates as an ordinary student. Class continues without Sahara as if nothing has changed. Taku gets scolded for drawing manga, Watabe pesters him, and Shigeru is accused of stealing milk, basically the usual classroom circus, except Sahara can only watch from the outside. Sahara studies the classmates grieving after the accident and notices the flowers placed on his desk. Remembering who cried the hardest, he offers a quiet thank you that the living girl cannot hear. The photographs and flowers on Sahara's desk finally corner him with a truth he cannot laugh away. The class has been told he is gone, and the cheerful school day he imagined is unfolding around a memorial bearing his name. The narration then returns to the moment news of the collision reached the classroom. A frantic phone call sends everyone into panic as they learn that Chiaki witnessed the crash and that the injured student near the school is one of their own. At the hospital, Chiaki can barely explain what happened. Sahara was hit directly in front of her and rushed away in critical condition, and the shock becomes too much for her body to bear as she collapses into a classmate's arms. Back at the crossing, students stare at the blood-stained road and realize the rumor was followed by a real accident. Some whisper fearfully about the spirit, while others struggle to accept that Sahara could have been taken from them so suddenly. Sahara tries to calm everyone, insisting that he is standing right beside them, but no one responds. As Taku becomes physically ill from shock, Sahara reaches the only conclusion that seems possible. He must be dead, invisible, and completely cut off from the living. Taku panics and wonders whether Sahara's apparent death has somehow cursed him. Sahara reaches for his friend and desperately tries to reassure him, but his hand and voice pass through the living world without leaving a trace. Several classmates mock Taku for always clinging to Sahara and claim that Sahara was his only real friend. Furious, Sahara shouts that they are wrong and that Taku must not blame himself, even though none of them can hear his defense. Grief erupts into chaos when Ren attacks a student photographing the accident scene. While others drag them apart, the awful news spreads through the class. The victim is one of their own. Concern shifts toward Chiaki and Ren, who were closest to the accident. The others ask whether they are hurt and urge Chiaki to go home. But her devastated expression shows that the emotional wound is far deeper than anything they can see. Chiaki apologizes again and again, convinced that Sahara's accident is somehow her fault. Her classmates insist she did nothing wrong, but comforting words cannot reach the guilt already tightening around her. Sahara returns to the memorial and studies the photographs his friends left behind. Surrounded by proof of the life he believes he has lost, he watches the classroom from the outside and feels his former place slipping away. Sahara finds Taku grieving alone and thanks him for caring so deeply. He even jokes that he might have dated Taku if he were still alive. Classic Sahara, using one last shameless tease to soften a farewell his friend cannot hear. Looking back on the ordinary days he shared with everyone, Sahara admits that he is grateful he entered this class and became their friend. His smile carries no resentment toward the classmates mourning him, only regret that his time with them ended so suddenly. Gratitude cannot change what Sahara currently believes. Convinced that he is dead and unable to reach anyone, he feels every unsaid apology and farewell trapped on the wrong side of life. As the crowd disperses, Sahara focuses on Chiaki. The warmth leaves his face because she is not merely a grieving childhood friend. In his fragmented memory, she is the person standing closest to the instant he entered the road. Sahara faces Chiaki and asks the question haunting him since the collision. Why did she push him? His voice cannot reach her, but the accusation establishes the mystery exactly as he understands it, not yet as proven fact. Broken flashes of the accident return to Sahara. He remembers Chiaki's hand striking his back and demands to know whether she hated him, never considering that shock and incomplete memory may be distorting the final seconds. His fear quickly grows beyond his own condition. Sahara worries that Chiaki may hurt someone else, and the possibility of another friend being placed in danger turns confusion into determination. As Sahara watches Chiaki, the image of another young girl rises in his memory. He begins to suspect that what happened at the crossing is tied to an older tragedy, although he still understands only fragments of that past. Since no living person can see or hear him, Sahara knows he cannot expose anything alone. He turns toward the silent figure of the little girl at the crossing and decides that, somehow, the two of them must make the truth visible. For one frightening instant, Chiaki's grieving expression looks twisted through Sahara's suspicion. He vows that the class will learn what happened, even if an unseen boy has to achieve the impossible to tell them. With the school behind him, Sahara gives his mission a name. These are the words he must leave behind. His message will uncover the accident, protect his friends, and confront the pain buried in their childhood. 10 years earlier, Sahara was an energetic child who proudly called himself a member of the Galaxy Trio, a heroic squad sworn to defend Earth. Give this boy one playground and 3 dramatic poses, and he was already commanding an intergalactic army. When older children bullied the timid Taku, Sahara charged in without hesitation and announced himself as a messenger of justice. Chiaki joined the rescue, turning the showdown into chaotic play and making it clear that these children protected one another long before they understood the cost. After driving the bullies away, Chiaki invited Sahara and Taku to continue their squadron game. Sahara teased her for joining despite being a girl, but the argument only strengthened the playful bond between the childhood friends. Their game is interrupted when Sahara notices another child nearby. Chiaki calls her Mi-tan, and the shy little girl becomes the quiet fourth presence around the supposed Galaxy Trio. Mi-tan looks directly at Sahara and calls his name with a bright smile. Her innocent trust stands in painful contrast to the silent figure now waiting at the same crossing. On June 11th, Sahara returns to the accident site and finds what appears to be Mi-tan's spirit crouched near the memorial. Pedestrians stream through the crossing while the 2 unseen children remain trapped beside the place that changed their lives. A group of students notices the flowers and wonders whether someone died there. Mei loudly speculates about the accident until Ren scolds her, warning that careless talk near a memorial might invite a curse. Mei suddenly freezes and clenches her hand as if an unseen presence has brushed against her. While Sahara watches from nearby, her startled reaction suggests that the boundary between the living and the dead may not be completely sealed. Chiaki arrives and immediately notices Ren's streaming nose. Ren is too flustered to explain what happened, but the strange physical reaction leaves Sahara wondering whether the girl sensed something supernatural at the crossing. Ren insists the nosebleed has nothing to do with sadness over Sahara, yet her embarrassment only makes the others more suspicious. Overwhelmed by their teasing, she escapes to the infirmary while pretending the incident means nothing. In the infirmary, Taku is caught hiding the manga he drew and panics when Ren appears. Their awkward collision sends papers flying, and it becomes clear that both of Sahara's closest classmates are struggling to behave normally after the accident. Chiaki arrives and immediately notices Ren's streaming nose. Ren is too flustered to explain, and somehow a supernatural mystery has already been interrupted by the least dignified nosebleed imaginable. Nearby students discuss the rumor of a ghost appearing at the crossing and admit that Sahara's accident makes it difficult to dismiss. Taku listens in silence, disturbed by how quickly his friend's death is becoming another frightening school story. Kenta angrily confronts the gossiping students and demands that they stop treating Sahara's apparent death like entertainment. He points out that their careless words are hurting Taku, exposing how cruel ordinary curiosity can sound to someone who has lost his closest friend. Chiaki checks on Ren in the infirmary and gently asks whether she is ready to return to class. Sahara watches from beside the bed, unsettled by how naturally Chiaki can comfort someone while hiding the truth about his death. Ren insists she has recovered and rejoins the others, only to be teased for crying so openly. Their laughter briefly eases the tension, but Sahara remains close enough to hear every word they still cannot say to him. Chiaki admits that seeing Ren again makes her feel relieved, almost as if Sahara is standing beside them. She quickly apologizes for the strange comment, unaware that Sahara truly is listening only a few steps away. The conversation turns to Kenta Asuka, whose temper has worsened since the accident. Although some classmates find him frightening, Chiaki explains that he was deeply shaken by what happened and has reasons the others do not yet understand. Chiaki then tells Ren about Mitan, a young girl who died at the same crossing years earlier. Mitan often played with Sahara and Chiaki, making the old accident far more personal than the school rumor suggests. The memory finally gives Mitan her real name, Asuka Michi. As the girls head back to class, Chiaki encourages Ren to apologize to Taku, while Michi's smiling childhood image lingers like a forgotten warning. Chiaki urges Ren to speak honestly with Taku. She knows the two once spent every day together, and although their childhood closeness cannot simply be restored, Taku still seems to be waiting for Ren to reach out. Her warning becomes more urgent. If Ren does not hold on to Taku now, he may drift away forever. Chiaki compares him to the shy and clumsy Michi, revealing how easily quiet children can disappear while everyone assumes they are fine. Chiaki recalls that Michi lived in the same building because both of their parents worked constantly. Younger than the others and usually watched by an older brother, she often joined Sahara and Chiaki when they played soccer outside. Michi was so timid that she hid whenever a stranger appeared. When she vanished, Sahara and Chiaki would search in a panic, only to discover that she had been crouching somewhere nearby the entire time. Yet after one frightening day, Michi's smile was never as innocent again. Chiaki remembers the fear in the girl's face and hints that the accident at the crossing was not as simple as everyone believed. Chiaki ends the story with a soft apology, claiming Sahara probably never understood what happened to Michi. Her calm smile conceals more than it reveals, while Sahara listens and realizes she is carefully controlling the version of the past Ren receives. Chiaki places a hand over her chest and says she is certain Sahara remains by her side. Behind her, the shadows of Sahara and Michi loom like silent witnesses, turning the comforting statement into something deeply unsettling. When Chiaki leads the girls toward the road, Sahara screams for them to stop. He cannot touch them or block their path, and his fragmented memory makes every passing car feel like the beginning of the same nightmare. Kenta rushes forward and grabs Ren before she can step farther. He tells her not to cry and insists Sahara is still with her, voicing the same truth that Sahara has been desperately trying to make everyone understand. Ren's tears overwhelm Kenta, who begs her to stop because watching her breakdown is more than he can bear. His rough words collapse into helpless emotion, and it becomes clear that he is terrified of losing another person at the crossing. Kenta finally admits that Ren seems as though she might disappear too, and that thought frightens him. A train roars past as he holds her close, making the danger surrounding their grief impossible to ignore. Elsewhere, May drops her phone near the crossing and loudly curses her bad luck. Sahara notices the noisy girl again, and her unusual reactions to the supernatural make her seem like the one living person who might eventually hear him. After retrieving the phone, May remembers that she still owes Teku an apology. At the same time, Sahara reflects on the forgotten fourth child from his past, connecting May's sudden appearance to memories that have begun resurfacing around Michi. May and her friends discuss Sahara's childhood group, recalling that he, Chiaki, and another friend were once called a trio. Their conversation drifts to a cat that died years ago, unknowingly drawing closer to the spiritual world Sahara now inhabits. Chiaki quietly adds that the child who played with them was also very cute. The sweetness of the comment feels hollow beside Michi's ghost, whose silence suggests that Chiaki's nostalgic stories is missing its darkest part. Desperate Sahara approaches an elderly medium during a public séance and begs him to relay one simple warning. Chiaki may have pushed him, and someone else could be in danger. Unfortunately, the supposed professional is already surrounded by far noisier spirits. The séance collapses into glorious nonsense as a cheating husband, a furious wife, and several quarrelsome ghosts drown Sahara out. So much for the supernatural emergency hotline. The medium broadcasts everybody's scandal except the one warning that actually matters. Frustrated, Sahara turns back to Michi and asks her to explain the spirit world. He has already approached countless people without success. And even the colors and forms of not-for-bice ghosts only deepen his confusion about how the dead can reach the living. Sahara presses Michi for answers, reminding her that they have not seen each other in 10 years. He insists she witnessed Chiaki's plan to kill someone else, but Michi refuses to speak, leaving him alone with the urgency of stopping another death. Refusing to surrender, Sahara tries to revive the cheerful child Michi once was. He proposes gathering other ghosts and shouting until the living hear them, convinced that the two of them may be the only ones capable of stopping Chiaki. A car tears through the crossing as Sahara lunges forward instinctively. The vehicle passes through his ghostly body, but Michi's startled reaction proves that even after death, the memory of being struck still controls them both. Sahara collapses on the pavement while Michi silently watches him. He asks what kind of girl she used to be, trying to recover the friend hidden beneath the withdrawn spirit who has spent 10 years at the site of her death. As school lessons continue nearby, Sahara admits that he remembers Michi herself, but has forgotten many of the games they shared. The missing details make him realize how much of her life has already faded from the world. The thought leaves Sahara alone outside the school, confronting a cruel truth of death. Being forgotten can hurt almost as much as dying. Michi has endured that loneliness for a decade, and he may soon share the same fate. During class, May's friends tease her for constantly talking about Kenta Asaka. May fiercely denies loving him and insists she was only complaining about being hit, though her defensive reaction tells everyone more than she intends. The teasing continues as the girls point out that Kenta held back and may actually care about her. May admits his face is not bad, then immediately rejects the idea that he is her type, turning the discussion into another noisy argument. Taku overhears them and mutters that this is why women are impossible. May catches the insult, storms over to the bespectacled boy, and demands that he repeat it to her face, dragging him unwillingly into the conversation. The thought leaves Sahara alone outside the school with one of death's cruelest fears, being forgotten. Michi has endured that loneliness for 10 years, and he begins to understand why her silence feels heavier than words. Ren apologizes for her earlier behavior and notices the manga pages scattered around Taku. He hurriedly offers her a seat, embarrassed that she has discovered the private work he usually hides from everyone. The teasing continues as the girls argue that Kenta held back and might actually care about May. May admits his face is not bad, then rejects him as her type so quickly that she practically answers the question for everyone. Taku overhears them and mutters that this is why women are impossible. Naturally, May hears the one sentence he should have kept inside his head and marches over to demand a repeat performance. Taku tells Ren that beneath everything, she is still the same kind girl who never abandoned him when others bullied him. Ren answers that he has not changed either, and their awkward compliments begin rebuilding the trust Sahara once held between them. The tender mood collapses when Taku blurts out that a violent girl like Ren was never cute. She immediately attacks him, but the familiar quarrel proves they can still interact with the honesty they shared as children. Ren laughs at Taku's unchanged sharp tongue, then becomes quiet when Sahara's name is mentioned. Hearing about their dead friend still cuts deeply, and Taku recognizes that his attempt to cheer her cannot erase the loss. Taku starts to confess something important, then apologizes and pulls back. He tells Resen there is nothing she can do about what happened, yet his trembling expression reveals that the words he cannot say may concern his own feelings for her. Instead, Taku urges Ren to forget Sahara, because seeing her suffer is painful for him too. He wants her smiling as she did in the past tense, but asking her to abandon the unseen boy exposes the jealousy and grief he has hidden for years. Taku tells Ren that beneath everything, she is still the same kind girl who never abandoned him when others bullied him. Ren says he has not changed either, and their awkward compliments begin rebuilding a bridge both were too stubborn to cross. The tender mood lasts roughly 5 seconds before Taku blurts out that a violent girl like Ren was never cute. She attacks him immediately, and somehow that familiar disaster proves they can finally speak honestly again. Mei points out that Chiaki looked ready to die when she walked along the road, and wonders whether she wished she had died in Sahara's place. The observation forces everyone to confront just how dangerously guilt is consuming Chiaki. Kenta tries to lighten Taku's misery by joking that there are plenty of other romantic options. He suggests Mei or even a lonely male classmate. Turning Taku's private heartbreak into merciless public teasing, Mei slaps Kenta for going too far, then finally recognizes Taku as the boy who was involved in the accident. Other students note that he always wore Sahara's school jacket, linking his strange appearance to the absent friend he cannot let go. Mei studies Taku and realizes she had mistaken the jacket for something else. Her curiosity shifts toward Sahara's accident, while the people around her remain unaware that the unseen boy himself is close enough to hear every careless question. After skipping class, Mei nearly collides with Taku and hurriedly apologizes. His familiar school jacket catches her attention, and for a moment she seems to recognize something connected to the strange figure haunting her phone. Taku reacts sharply when Sahara's name is mentioned, while Mei studies his face. Even though everyone believes Sahara is dead, the people closest to him still behave as if he remains tangled in every unfinished conversation. Walking home alone, Mei senses footsteps behind her and wonders whether the boy from the accident is following her. The empty street offers no answer, but the uneasiness she first felt at the crossing refuses to disappear. Mei arrives home unusually early, surprising her stern father. He assumes she feels sick and cheerfully announces a work bonus and yakiniku for dinner. But Mei is too distracted by the supernatural presence outside to enjoy the news. Locked in her room, Mei tries to convince herself that she will be fine. A faint knocking and whispering interrupt her thoughts, making it clear that whatever followed her from the crossing has reached her home. A voice suddenly asks what clothes she saw the ghost wearing. Mei turns toward the dark window, realizing that the figure outside is trying to make her identify him rather than simply frighten her. Mei arrives home unusually early, stunning her stern father. He assumes she is sick and celebrates a work bonus with plans for yakiniku, while Mei is far too busy worrying about the supernatural visitor outside to appreciate free grilled meat. 10 years earlier, young Mei adored the world seen through the camera phone her father gave her. He warned her to handle it carefully, never imagining that its lens would reveal things invisible to ordinary eyes. When Mei photographed the crowded crossing, a pale little girl appeared on the screen. Bystanders were already talking about an old accident and a ghost, making the image impossible for the frightened child to dismiss. Mei ran to her father and insisted that the dead girl was trying to communicate with her. Although he performed spiritual prayers for others, he firmly denied that ghosts existed and refused to believe what his daughter had captured. Exactly 10 years later, Mei's phone records another accident at the same crossing. The image contains more spirits than before, and the terrifying pattern convinces her that the childhood encounter was never imagination. Zooming in, Mei spots Sahara's ghost wearing the school jersey and apparently following her. Her friends scream at the photograph, while Mei realizes the unseen boy has deliberately placed himself inside the only medium through which she can see him. Students connected to Sahara's class seize May's phone and demand that she erase the accident images. Furious that she photographed their dead classmate, they accuse her of exploiting the tragedy, leaving May defensive and confused about the spirit pursuing her. May notices another group of girls staring at the crossing with tormented expressions. Their conversation appears serious, and she begins to suspect that Sahara's accident has created several different kinds of guilt among the people who knew him. While trying to take another picture, May drops her phone near a tunnel entrance. The device slides away just as the ghostly presence closes in, temporarily separating her from the one tool that can reveal Sahara. By the time May retrieves the phone, the spirit has followed her deeper into the area. Her classmates laugh at her frightened expression, but she can no longer pretend that the shadow behind her is harmless coincidence. May complains that the unseen boy has been following her for far too long. She wonders whether lonely ghosts drag other people into death for company, provoking anger from those who believe Sahara would never hurt his friends. Sahara listens from the shadows as May debates his motives. Her fear is understandable, but he is not searching for another victim. He is searching for the one living person who can finally deliver his warning. On June 24th, May reaches the crossing before sunrise and prepared for car confrontation. Running has solved nothing, so she decides to face the spirit alone, an admirably brave plan with absolutely no sensible backup. May openly challenges Sahara to haunt her and boasts that a spirit medium's daughter will not be intimidated. Her confidence falters when Kenta appears on his morning run, the last person she wanted involved in her secret investigation. While Kenta trains nearby, May keeps watching the crowded road for Sahara. She promises that even if an accident occurs, she has no intention of becoming a ghost, revealing how frightened she remains beneath the bravado. Kenta suddenly blasts past at full speed, startling May and ruining her vigil. Of course, Kenta's contribution to a ghost mystery is an intense morning sprint. The boy apparently processes every emotion through soccer training. Before leaving, Kenta delivers a strange message. Someone told May to go away. Since he claims he did nothing himself, May realizes he may have unknowingly sensed or repeated words coming from the dead. May races to school and confronts Kenta, only to learn she arrived nearly 2 hours early. Between her breathless questions and the teacher noticing yesterday's absence, her attempt to investigate quietly is already collapsing. May races to school and confronts Kenta, only to discover she has arrived almost 2 hours early. Between her breathless questions and the teacher noticing yesterday's absence, her plan for a quiet investigation falls apart before homeroom even starts. Their classmates rush over and ask whether May is hurt. She brushes them off with another outburst, reinforcing everyone's belief that she is strange while concealing the supernatural reason behind her panic. Exhausted, May crashes into Taku and immediately accuses him of looking up her skirt. He denies seeing anything, and the ridiculous argument briefly disguises the fact that Sahara's presence has pulled the two most socially disastrous students into the same mystery. Taku irritably reminds May that he is alive, earning another slap for his bluntness. A teacher then questions her early arrival and skipped class, forcing May to abandon the conversation before she can ask about Sahara. The teacher announces a disturbing theft. A boy's school uniform has vanished. Although only one set was taken, the staff asks girls to travel home in groups, implying that the incident may involve more than simple stealing. The missing uniform was found completely destroyed inside the incinerator. As the class reacts, May suspects the victim may be connected to Sahara, because clothing is the clearest clue identifying the ghost in her photographs. May wonders whether the destruction was not robbery at all, but an attempt to erase evidence. Since a ghost cannot burn a uniform, someone living must be acting around Sahara's apparent death, while the class remains unaware. The mystery revives May's childhood guilt. She remembers ignoring Michi's spirit 10 years ago and wonders whether helping that lonely girl might somehow have prevented Sahara's apparent death, even though she knows the past cannot be proven or changed. Determined not to repeat that failure, May follows Sahara's shadow into an empty corridor and promises to listen. For the first time, she stops treating him as a curse and offers him a chance to communicate. Sahara approaches, but May orders him to keep his distance. Since she cannot hear his voice clearly, she begins forming a safer method of questioning the ghost without losing control of her fear. May tells Sahara to answer by tapping his foot, once for no and twice for yes. 2 taps confirm that he is the boy from the recent accident, while another answer proves he is not following her to drag her into death. Relieved that Sahara is not trying to harm her, May asks whether he needs help. His clear response turns their frightening encounter into an alliance between a boy everyone believes is dead and the only girl capable of receiving his message. May asks whether the girl near Sahara caused the collision and whether the official account is incomplete. His taps convince her that something is wrong, pushing her from ghost hunting into what she believes is a murder investigation. Another deliberate series of taps confirms the answer May feared most. Sahara was killed, and the person responsible is still close enough to move freely among their classmates. May follows Sahara through the school as he leads her toward the culprit. Although her courage is nearly exhausted, the dark figure ahead grins from the corridor, hinting that the danger has already noticed her interference. Sahara stops near the classroom, and May assumes the person he blames is inside. Her first thought is to call the police. Her second is the obvious problem that a ghost tap twice is not exactly courtroom evidence. May imagines officers politely dismissing every word about spirits and foot taps. With another victim potentially in danger, she decides she must uncover something concrete before approaching anyone in authority. May imagines officers politely enduring a report about spirits and foot taps before escorting her out. With another student possibly in danger, she decides she needs evidence that exists outside the supernatural world. The story briefly returns to Taku's handmade manga, where a magical heroine is attacked by an enemy descending from the sky. The exaggerated fantasy reflects the drawings he uses to express feelings he cannot speak aloud. Within the manga, the villain cuts off the heroine's magic source and threatens to seize the star. Her companions rally around her, turning Taku's clumsy artwork into a tale about friends refusing to abandon one another. The story cuts to Taku's handmade manga, where a magical heroine is attacked by an enemy descending from the sky. The art may be chaotic, but the fantasy gives him a place to say everything he cannot manage in an ordinary conversation. Ren releases the group's combined thoughts and shatters the enemy's attack. Beneath the comedy, Taku has written a simple wish. If friends can connect their feelings, even an impossible crisis can be overcome. Several months earlier, Taku nervously showed the unfinished manga to Sahara and criticized every flaw before Sahara could respond. He expected ridicule, because sharing the story meant exposing the part of himself he guarded most carefully. A desperate ally activates the magical pyramid and begs Ren to save everyone. The transformation is gloriously overdramatic, yet Taku's fictional cast resembles his classmates a little too closely to be accidental. Taku tries to hide the unfinished manga, but Sahara insists that completing a story means having the courage to show it. Rather than mock his friend, Sahara pushes him to stop running from the talent he clearly possesses. Taku admits he abandoned a normal art style to draw magical girls and proudly reveals his heroine. Sahara immediately notices that the character resembles Ren, forcing Taku to confess that he secretly used their childhood friend as his reference. Sahara calls it one of the worst gag mangas he has ever read, and then declares that everyone needs to see it. That is Sahara in one sentence: brutal review, enthusiastic support, and absolutely no respect for Taku's blood pressure. On June 25th, Taku sits tensely in class while May watches him. Now convinced that Sahara may have been attacked, she treats his closest and most withdrawn friend as her best source of information. As the teacher stresses material that will appear on the next exam, Taku carefully records every point. His quiet concentration makes him seem harmless. Yet May cannot ignore the possibility that even Sahara's best friend may know more than he admits. May notices Taku filling page after page and asks what he is doing. He says he is only summarizing the lesson, and bluntly tells her to leave him alone, making any gentle investigation difficult from the start. After class, May invites Taku to walk home with her, but he claims he has club activities. She notices mud on his uniform and his recent nervousness, signs that his routine has changed since Sahara's accident. Before May can question him further, other students shove Taku and scatter his papers across the floor. The casual bullying reveals how vulnerable he remains without Sahara beside him. When May tries to help, Taku recoils and screams that he does not want a 3D girl touching him. His panic sounds cruel, but it is clearly a defensive wall built from years of humiliation. Mei responds furiously, demanding to know who he is calling a bitch. Taku continues insulting real women while clinging to fictional heroines, and the confrontation exposes how grief has made his already awkward behavior far more hostile. Mei finally tells Taku that drawing perverted manga, hurting people and running away will not bring Sahara back. Her words strike the wound he has been avoiding, and he bolts rather than face what his behavior has become. When Mei tries to help, Taku recoils and screams that he does not want a 3D girl touching him. It sounds vicious, but it is also the saddest possible defense mechanism from a boy who communicates better with ink than people. Classmates pull Taku back to his feet and scold Mei for hitting him. They argue that Sahara's accident has left Taku unstable, but the tension collapses into embarrassed, shouting when Mei's underwear becomes the new subject. Classmates pull Taku upright and scold Mei for hitting him. The serious discussion lasts until Mei's underwear becomes the new topic, because this class is apparently incapable of sustaining dignity for more than 10 seconds. The scattered pages reveal Taku's magical girl manga, and everyone recognizes Ren as the heroine's model. Cornered, Taku admits Sahara encouraged him to share it, but blaming his absent friend cannot hide how deeply that encouragement mattered. Ren kneels beside Taku and gently stops him from insulting himself again. Then, to distract the crowd, she poses as both Turn Pyramid and Brahmanja-sama, an act of friendship so embarrassing that it somehow becomes heroic. To distract the crowd, Ren enthusiastically poses as both Turn Pyramid and Brahmanja-sama from Taku's manga. The classmates cheer, and Taku is stunned to see his embarrassing fantasy accepted instead of ridiculed. Mei tells Taku he should at least answer Ren with a simple yes or no. He calls her a bitch again, making it clear that gratitude and basic survival instincts remain equally difficult for him. Mei tells Taku that he should at least answer Ren with a simple yes or no. He immediately calls her a bitch again, making it clear that gratitude remains far more difficult for him than hostility. Instead of giving up, Mei smiles and says she will handle it herself. Taku senses that her investigation is about to become much more direct, and his nervous expression confirms she has finally found a way past his defenses. Mei takes Taku somewhere private and asks him to listen before deciding she is insane. He reluctantly agrees, unaware that she is about to question him about a suspected attack communicated through Sahara's signs. She explains that the subject is his friend who died in the accident. Since Taku was closer to Sahara than anyone else, Mei needs him to answer honestly, even when his grief makes him avoid looking at her. Mei asks whether anyone held a grudge against Sahara, whether he fought with people, or whether any serious trouble surrounded him before the crash. Taku struggles to imagine the popular, reckless Sahara as someone's target. She then brings up the uniform found destroyed in the incinerator. The detail catches Taku off guard, hinting that he knows exactly which piece of clothing was stolen and why it matters. Mei considers two possibilities. A disturbed admirer took the uniform, or someone who hated Sahara ripped it apart. She points out that only part of the outfit was recovered, making the destruction look personal rather than random. Taku suddenly blurts out that he did not kill Sahara. The denial comes before Mei directly accuses him, transforming her questioning into something far more dangerous. Mei tries to end the conversation, deciding her approach has failed, and that the strange question meant nothing. Yet Taku's reaction proves she has touched a secret he can no longer contain. Taku lunges at Mei and knocks her to the ground before she can leave. His trembling body and desperate grip show that he is not attacking out of hatred, but collapsing under unbearable guilt. Pinning Mei down, Taku begins forcing out a confession. He says that he did something to Sahara, each broken word making it sound as though the timid boy truly believes he caused his best friend's death. Through tears, Taku declares that he killed Sahara. The confession is emotionally sincere, but Mei can already see that his crushing guilt does not match the physical event Sahara thinks he remembers. Taku clutches his chest and repeats that it hurts, remembering Sahara while struggling to breathe. His confession reveals a heart destroyed by remorse rather than the cold intention of a killer. Mei answers with a hard slap and shouts that Taku is an idiot who did not kill anyone. Subtle therapy has clearly left the building, but the shock interrupts his spiral long enough for the truth to reach him. Taku reacts wildly and tries to fight back, forcing Mei to dodge and wrestle him down again. She demands to know what truly happened, instead of allowing him to hide behind the easier claim that he is a murderer. Holding Taku in place, Mei accuses him of meddling with people's pain without understanding the damage. His self-hatred may feel private, but every cruel outburst has been injuring Ren, and everyone's still mourning Sahara. Mei tells Taku that he is killing people's hearts. She reminds him that Sahara's uniform was found torn into pieces, forcing him to confront the difference between grieving someone and destroying what they left behind. When Taku tries to retreat into denial, Mei repeatedly jabs at the lie until he breaks. She refuses to let him turn guilt into another performance that keeps the real truth hidden. Taku remembers classmates laughing at him, Sahara defending him, and voices telling him to die. The accumulated humiliation twists into a violent fantasy, where everyone disappears, revealing how close his grief has brought him to complete emotional collapse. In his mind, the insults become a chorus, and Taku imagines killing everyone who hurt him. The terrifying thought is not proof of murder, but it explains why he fears the darkness inside himself. Taku stabs at his own body in panic, and screams that dying should be possible. Mei watches in horror as he turns the violence inward, convinced that punishment is the only answer to his thoughts. Mei knocks him down again and calls him an idiot. Even while Taku insists his hateful thoughts make him guilty, she refuses to confuse emotional resentment with the hand Sahara believes sent him into traffic. To prove that ugly thoughts are not supernatural murder weapons, Mei produces her father's occult book, Dark Daima's Magic World. Taku recognizes it immediately as bizarre manga reference material, possibly the least reassuring evidence she could have chosen. Their argument veers into costumes, magic settings, and the money Mei's father makes selling occult books to students. Although the conversation loops absurdly, it drags Taku away from his suicidal panic and back toward ordinary irritation. Without warning, Mei grabs Taku and kisses him. The sudden contact silences every insult, leaving the boy too stunned to continue attacking himself or anyone else. Without warning, Mei grabs Taku and kisses him. Every insult stops instantly. For once, his brain is too overwhelmed to manufacture another reason to hate himself. Mei tells Taku that, since he has now kissed the bitch he keeps insulting, they stand on equal ground. She uses the ridiculous logic to force him out of the role of untouchable outcast. She returns his glasses and gives him time to calm down. Taku tries to process what happened, while Mei insists that embarrassing him was preferable to watching him destroy himself. Mei states clearly that Taku did not kill Sahara. She calls him weak, awkward, and painfully kind, the exact combination that makes deliberate violence unlikely, despite the ugly thoughts he confessed. Her blunt reassurance finally reaches him. Taku cries as Mei promises to repeat the truth as many times as necessary, replacing his false confession with the certainty that guilt alone does not make him a killer. Once Taku settles, Mei asks what Sahara was really like. Taku describes a teasing boy who got carried away easily, but was fundamentally good and popular, then admits that jealousy may have poisoned some of the people around him. Mei suggests a more calculated possibility. Someone may have damaged Sahara's relationships before the collision. If so, the tragedy began long before the road, even if nobody yet understands how. The idea leaves Taku stunned. He realizes that the person who wounded Sahara most deeply may not be the same person he has been blaming, opening a new direction in the investigation. Mei asks whether anyone did something significant to Sahara before the accident. Taku tries to leave, flustered by the kiss, and promising to replace her damaged necktie. But the question follows him home. Left alone behind the school, Mei replays Taku's breakdown. She has cleared one suspect, but the real explanation remains hidden among students carrying different wounds connected to Sahara. The encounter leaves Mei shaking uncontrollably. Taku was only a false suspect, but his breakdown terrified her, and she cannot imagine how dangerous the actual killer might be. Mei calls for Sahara and demands that he reveal the culprit. Angry that he has supplied only fragments, she fears she will remain in danger until she becomes another ghost, while Sahara can do little more than stay nearby. Her courage finally collapses, and Mei cries that she does not want any of this. The ability to see the dead has turned her eyes into a burden, forcing her to witness pain she was never prepared to carry. Sahara reaches around Mei in a silent embrace. She cannot fully feel his arms, but the faint presence steadies her, making it clear that the ghost who recruited her is also trying to protect the frightened girl helping him. Later, Mei finds Sahara and Michi resting near the crossing and wonders whether ghosts need sleep. The strangely peaceful sight reminds her that the dead are not constant monsters. They can be exhausted, lonely children as well. Sahara realizes that Taku stole his school jacket and would probably have received it willingly if he had asked. Yet the garment being torn apart remains suspicious, because even obsessive grief does not explain every piece of damage. Chiaki speaks with Ren about Taku, describing a childhood friend whose heart was broken after Sahara's apparent death. She wonders whether grief drove him to something horrible, subtly directing suspicion toward the vulnerable boy Mei has just cleared. Ren approaches Chiaki with an occult book, quickly hides it, and calls it dirty. At this point, ghost rumors, Taku's manga, and teenage embarrassment are colliding so often that even the investigation seems confused. The girls bring another bouquet to Sahara's memorial and say it is the least they can do for a classmate. A boy watching nearby seems uncomfortable with how easily grief has become a public ritual. Kenta arrives at the memorial, causing the girls to panic and romanticize his friendship with Sahara. They imagine his anger after the accident as proof of deep loyalty, while he silently walks past their assumptions. Kenta crushes through the flowers and fixes the memorial with a hard stare. His reaction is far more hostile than ordinary mourning, hinting that Sahara's apparent death awakened resentment alongside grief. Watching Kenta leave, the others admit that he seems even more frightening now than when the accident first occurred. Whatever he feels about Sahara is intense enough to unsettle everyone around him. Kenta arrives at the memorial, and several girls immediately romanticize his anger as proof of deep loyalty to Sahara. Teenagers really can turn one gloomy walk past flowers into an entire tragic romance. Other girls called Taku creepy and told him to stay away, but Sahara immediately defended him and tried to take him home. Ren demanded more time with Taku, treating their rough games as proof of friendship. Sahara urged Taku to stop wavering and stand up for himself, while Ren argued that his kindness was precisely why others targeted him. Both children wanted to protect him, even if their methods were completely different. Ren proudly declared that she would send every bully flying, and wished she could take Taku's place whenever he was hurt. Her fierce loyalty explains why she still carries responsibility for him years later. As the children began walking to school together, classmates covered the blackboard with rumors pairing Ren and Taku. Their innocent closeness became entertainment for others, turning friendship into another source of humiliation. Girls taunted Ren for fighting with boys and claimed she must secretly be one herself. She loudly denied every rumor, but her anger only encouraged them to press harder. The bullying escalated when several students grabbed Ren and ordered everyone to beat her. Taku finally tried to defend the girl who had always protected him, forcing his timid courage into the open. Taku sees several boys preparing to attack Ren and finally steps out from hiding. Although terrified, he cannot watch the girl who always protected him face the bullies alone. Sahara arrives just as the confrontation ends and finds Ren crying. He dismisses the chaos as another childish brawl, but the tears reveal that the rumors and harassment have hurt her more deeply than any punch. Taku stays beside Ren, despite worrying that classmates will claim they are dating. He asks her to be kinder to him and, more importantly, why she is crying, offering the quiet concern she could not find from anyone else. From a distance, Sahara watches the two children sitting together beneath the playground trees. Their fragile reconciliation becomes another memory linking Taku and Ren long after the three friends drift apart. In the present, Kenta wakes after another restless night and stares at his phone. Sahara's apparent death and the changes in Ren have begun following him even into the few hours when he should be resting. Kenta appears exhausted at breakfast, and his family mentions that Chiaki visited earlier. The name immediately brings Ren to mind, pushing him to leave before he has fully recovered. He rushes through his morning routine and heads out after hearing that Chiaki came to see Ren. Kenta's urgency shows that his concern for Ren is no longer something he can dismiss as ordinary friendship. Chiaki walks with Ren and talks about how complicated life becomes for girls. Beneath the casual conversation, she subtly guides Ren's thoughts about friendship, grief, and the boys surrounding them. Chiaki asks about Kenta's soccer schedule and learns he usually attends only morning practice. The subject leads naturally to Sahara, who once played soccer beside Kenta before suddenly quitting. In the present, Kenta wakes after another restless night and stares at his phone. Sahara's accident and the changes in Ren now follow him even into the few hours when he should be sleeping. Kenta appears and calls Sahara an idiot who always got carried away, though he admits he constantly looked after others. When he notices Ren, his gloomy mood lifts immediately, exposing the feelings he has tried to hide. Mei apologizes to Ren for the previous day's chaos, explaining that Taku angered her, and she lashed out. Ren is more concerned about Mei's exposed underwear than the fight, turning the awkward apology into another comic misunderstanding. Taku approaches carrying a large stack of belongings and nervously faces Mei. She demands to know why he has been avoiding her, while he struggles to force out the apology he owes. Taku finally says he is sorry for repeatedly calling Mei a bitch. The simple apology surprises both of them, because it proves their violent confrontation actually reached him. The girls discuss the manga Taku recently drew, and how different it is from his usual obscene material. They reveal that he created the more sincere story specifically for Ren, making his feelings impossible to dismiss. When they inspect the book, however, the cover and cat-like heroine still look embarrassingly lewd. Taku's habits remain visible even inside the story, leaving everyone unsure whether to laugh or be touched. Ren explains that Taku did not simply hand her random material. He wanted her to read this particular story. Although she pretends not to care, she quietly keeps the manga instead of throwing it away. Taku arrives and says he will take the book back the next day. Seeing Ren hold it makes him anxious, but her willingness to read it offers the first sign that his apology may be accepted. Chiaki finds Taku near the cleanup area and asks to sit beside him while Ren finishes her duties. Her calm approach leaves him uncertain whether she wants to discuss the manga or something far more serious. Chiaki tells Taku she read the new work but preferred the one he made before. Her honest praise catches him off guard, and he thanks her despite not understanding what she truly sees in his stories. Taku admits the previous day's fight forced him to think. Once his anger cooled, he understood several things about Ren and the damage caused by using Sahara as an excuse for his behavior. He confesses that he tried to blame everything on Sahara because he was afraid of hurting Ren. In reality, Taku was the one who wrote the manga and the one whose fear ended up hurting her. Taku says he pretended to be the victim even when he knew he was partly responsible. Chiaki listens with an unreadable smile, encouraging him to reveal more of the insecurity that can be manipulated. Taku explains that his first manga came from elementary school, when a girl he remembers only by the surname Aikawa saved him. He cast himself as the villain, but the story preserved his wish to become someone capable of protecting others. Chiaki Aikawa's expression darkens when Taku mentions that childhood encounter. For the first time, the surname is clearly tied to her, removing the impression that Aikawa is a separate character. Taku suddenly realizes Chiaki is connected to that childhood event and calls after her, declaring that she was the one who saved him. His gratitude exposes a secret identity hidden behind their familiar friendship. Chiaki turns toward him with a composed smile, but the shadow beside her makes the moment threatening. Taku believes he has uncovered a kind act, while Chiaki appears to be calculating what his memory could reveal. Alone in the classroom, Chiaki slips the manga into a desk and studies its cat-like drawings. The quiet action suggests she is searching Taku's work for evidence rather than reading it as a friend. Mei arrives and spots Chiaki finishing cleanup, while Taku appears moments later. Everyone exchanges ordinary greetings, but Mei senses that the room contains more tension than either of them admits. Mei asks a classmate about Taku and pretends it is casual curiosity. Her face betrays her immediately. After one breakdown and one impulsive kiss, this investigation has become embarrassingly personal. She admits that yesterday's fight made her interested in him. Taku has always seemed unpleasant and isolated, yet his recent behavior suggests grief and fear rather than simple hostility. When asked why she cares, Mei insists Taku is now her friend. The declaration surprises even her, making it clear that helping Sahara has already tied her emotionally to the people surrounding his death. Mei presses for everything the classmate knows about Sahara, whether he was good or bad, who hated him, who liked him, and whom he loved. She needs a full map of his relationships before another accident occurs, The class dismisses Mei's questions as rude curiosity about someone they believe has died. She insists she is trying to help, but without mentioning Sahara's presence, every investigation makes her sound cruel rather than concerned. An ambulance siren interrupts the argument. Mei freezes, realizing the sound is approaching the school, and that Sahara's warning about another victim may already be coming true. Sahara suddenly appears at the classroom window as the siren grows. Right? His urgent presence confirms that the emergency is connected to their investigation, and Mei races toward the commotion. The ambulance stops nearby, exactly as Mei feared. She follows the crowd, convinced that another incident has occurred close to the place where Sahara was struck. Students gather around Taku after his fall down the stairs. Sahara shouts for everyone to give him space and tries to reach his unconscious friend, but the unseen boy's panic cannot reach the living. Paramedics call Taku's name and confirm he is unresponsive after striking his head. The classmates whisper that he was always unsteady, yet Mei sees how easily a deliberate attack could be disguised as an accident. As Taku is lifted onto the stretcher, Mei catches Chiaki's expression and begins to understand whom Sahara was leading her toward. The fear in Mei's eyes turns into accusation. Kenta grabs the suspected girl and demands to know whether she pushed Taku down the stairs. The confrontation erupts before the ambulance has even left, exposing how quickly trust inside the class is collapsing. The accusation widens as someone claims Sahara's accident was also Chiaki's fault. Her controlled reaction makes Mei even more suspicious. Though suspicion still is not proof, other students defend Chiaki, pointing out that she reported the fall and that Taku appeared to go down by himself. Yet Mei insists the witnesses were too far away to know what happened during the crucial instant. Desperate for confirmation, Mei orders Sahara to tap his foot as before. Her classmates think she is daydreaming, while the ghost struggles to answer amid the chaos. Chiaki slaps Mei and calls her the worst. The blow silences the accusation in public, but whether it comes from fear, anger, or guilt remains deliberately unclear. Everyone accuses Mei of treating the accident like a detective game and changing theories from ghosts to Chiaki. Their anger forces her to retreat, because telling the truth would only make her sound more unstable. The ambulance heads to the same hospital where Sahara was taken. Mei wonders whether she misunderstood the ghost, while the people around her dismiss the confrontation as another of her mistakes. Chiaki calmly approaches Mei and asks whether she had been talking with Taku before he was injured. Her concern sounds reasonable, but the question feels like an attempt to measure exactly what Taku revealed. When Chiaki asks for every detail, Mei answers carefully. She suspects that the girl questioning her may be the same person Sahara blames, but she still has no evidence beyond his fragmented signals. A police officer asks Chiaki to give her statement first and tells Mei to wait in the classroom. Separated from the others, Mei realizes the official process may allow Chiaki to control the story once again. Watching Chiaki comfort the frightened girls, Mei tells herself she is not like them, yet she also recognizes how easily Chiaki earns trust, which makes exposing her far more difficult. Mei concludes that Ren may be Chiaki's next target. Her theory turns Taku's fall into part of a suspected sequence, although the story now makes clear that this is Mei's interpretation rather than established fact. Elsewhere, Ren reads Taku's manga and brutally attacks its obscene jokes, confused genre, and awkward cat hero. Yet she keeps turning the pages, which may be the kindest review Taku has ever received. Inside the manga, Cat Chickman rescues a princess whose country has been destroyed. The princess cannot understand why anyone would save someone powerless and without value. Cat Chickman explains that the princess made him human. Bullied for his appearance, he might have become a frightened recluse or a violent creature who hated the world if she had not shown him kindness. He tells her that saving him was never wrong, even if his weakness caused her pain and made others hate her. Her compassion transformed him, and she deserves to be proud of that choice. The hero praises the princess as strong, cool, and overflowing with confidence. Because people like her exist, weak people can stop looking down, and her kindness has already saved at least one life. Taku calls the work terrible, but Ren refuses to agree. Beneath the crude art and questionable taste, she recognizes the gratitude he has never managed to say aloud. When Ren asks why he thinks she read it incorrectly, Taku cannot answer. She walks away with the manuscript, leaving him to confront the sincerity hidden inside his own creation. Ren returns later and apologizes for being late. Taku, now recovering after the fall, hears her voice and realizes she has come back instead of abandoning him. From a nearby window, Chiaki watches in silence. Ren and Taku's growing connection unsettles her, but the narration no longer treats that discomfort as proof of a secret murder plan. At night, Mei tends an injury while complaining that a mark remains because blood rushed to her head. Her friends urge her to stop moving, and the incident reminds them how dangerous this investigation has become. They reassure Mei that Taku will probably recover, but concern lingers over everyone involved. Each new accident makes ordinary school life feel less safe. Alone, Chiaki drops her gentle expression and mutters something that sounds threatening to Mei. From Mei's frightened perspective, it feels murderous. But the scene deliberately withholds enough context to keep that judgment uncertain. Chiaki meets Mei's accusation with a calm smile instead of fear. Mei reads the composure as a decision to eliminate her, although later revelations will show how dangerously assumption and guilt are distorting everyone involved. 10 years earlier, on April 10th, the story returns to Michi's childhood. She stands apart while Sahara practices soccer nearby, already carrying the loneliness that will shape the tragedy to come. Sahara ignores the rules and secretly trains with a ball because he wants to become a regular player like Kenta. Chiaki scolds him, while Michi watches from the edge and gathers courage to approach. When Michi asks to join, Sahara dismisses her and says this is why everyone calls her a ghost. His careless cruelty wounds the shy girl who had only wanted to be included. Sahara then charges at older bullies and boasts that he is both a soccer ace and a hero. The contradiction is painful. He can rescue a stranger with full dramatic flair while overlooking the shy girl beside him. Michi quietly offers food and compliments another child's handmade bag. Her instinct is always to be kind, even after Sahara has embarrassed her. She admits she hates preschool but likes Sahara because he seems cool. The other children tease her, while she insists that being kind is what princesses are supposed to do. Michi announces that the hospital called to say her grandmother died, yet she does not understand why she should feel sad. The detached response shocks the others and hints at the emotional confusion surrounding her home life. Michi repeats her grandmother's final promise. Even after death, she would remain beside her, so Michi should not cry and should keep smiling. Sahara calls the logic strange, but the child's faith explains why she does not understand ordinary mourning. The children decide Michi's grandmother must have reincarnated as a magical girl, borrowing the plot of a ridiculous anime. It makes no logical sense whatsoever, which is exactly why it gives a grieving child the comfort adults failed to provide. Michi brightens at the idea and proudly imagines her grandmother fighting as a magical heroine. For a brief moment, the lonely girl shares the carefree imagination of the other children. Sitting beside the river, the children wonder whether they might someday witness the magical grandmother themselves. Michi's growing smile shows how easily a compassionate story can reach her. Kenta appears searching for his younger sister and asks whether anyone has seen her. The encounter brings the older children closer to Michi's troubled family life. While arranging flowers, Michi breaks a vase and cuts her hand. Chiaki immediately moves to help, making it clear that beneath their teasing, the children instinctively care for the quiet girl. Chiaki carefully places a bandage over Michi's injury, only to reveal that she has cut herself as well. Michi offers another bandage, and the small exchange becomes a rare memory of mutual kindness. Back in the present, school life resumes with final exams approaching. Chiaki sits quietly among classmates who are trying to return to normal, even though Sahara's apparent death still controls every conversation. The teachers encourage everyone to go home, rest and let Taku recover before worrying about tests. The attempt at routine cannot hide how another serious accident has shaken the class. The school explains that Sahara's family has nearly completed the funeral rites and needs privacy. Students are told to return to their daily lives, while Taku remains hospitalized. After thinking too deeply about the tragedy, Chiaki asks Ren to walk home together, but Ren chooses to leave alone. Her refusal reveals a growing distance between the two girls, just as Chiaki appears most eager to keep her close. Watching Ren leave, classmates remark that Taku seems to have no one else. Chiaki quietly studies how Sahara's apparent death has isolated every survivor in a different way. Mei arrives and kicks aside a crude prank left near the path, then finds Chiaki waiting nearby. Their polite greeting hides the fact that each now sees the other as a threat. Chiaki notes that they are finally alone and mentions that Ren has been absent since the latest incident. Mei understands that the conversation has been arranged deliberately. Chiaki praises Mei for worrying about Taku even after Ren struck her, then asks why she shows so little concern for Sahara. The gentle question is designed to test exactly what Mei knows. Mei names Sahara and Taku, then asks Chiaki directly whether she caused both accidents. Chiaki's expression barely changes, which only makes Mei more determined to treat suspicion like certainty. Chiaki replies that if Mei wants to believe she pushed Sahara, she may as well say she did. She invites Mei to do whatever she wants, using reckless submission to make the accusation sound absurd. Mei lunges in anger, but Aoi catches her before she can reach Chiaki. The interruption saves Mei from attacking without evidence, and gives Chiaki another chance to leave as the innocent victim. Aoi restrains Mei while Chiaki walks away. Although Mei demands to know why he interfered, his intervention prevents her investigation from becoming the violence Chiaki can use against her. As Chiaki leaves, her words suggest that Michi's old accident belongs to the same buried secret. Sahara listens in horror, realizing the crossing may connect two tragedies, rather than one proven chain of murders. Aoi asks what Mei knows about Michi, but she refuses to explain. The name itself is enough to prove that her ghost investigation has reached beyond Sahara's recent accident. When Mei tries to escape, Aoi follows and suddenly notices the little girl standing behind her. His question about the stranger confirms that he can glimpse Michi, giving Mei an unexpected living witness. Aoi says Mei has changed since the accidents, and insists she would never normally attack someone. Even after her nonsense about ghosts, he believes a serious reason is driving her and offers to help. Terrified that involving him will create another target, Mei coldly tells Aoi never to speak to her again. The cruelty is deliberate, but his hurt expression shows how much the rejection costs both of them. Mei lashes out at nearby children and curses the foolish occult world surrounding her family. By acting unbearable, she hopes to drive Aoi and everyone else away from the danger. Alone, Mei admits that Chiaki only appears guilty. A ghost's signal is not evidence. She needs someone reckless enough to believe her while still helping uncover proof. Aoi's stubborn concern makes him the complete idiot Mei needs. Although she insults him for believing, her private thanks reveal relief that she no longer has to investigate alone. Mei waits outside Aoi's home, still wrestling with whether she should involve him. He arrives with questions, and the uneasy partnership begins despite her attempt to end it. Mei reports that Sahara's family did not answer the door or phone. With no evidence available there, she decides to rest and continue later, even spending the morning playing games to escape the pressure. Aoi declares that becoming a shut-in is the perfect solution to every problem. The ridiculous conclusion gives Mei and Aoi a brief pause from their failed search. Apparently trauma can wait while Fire Emblem loads. Mei embraces the break and prepares another session of Fire Emblem. The ordinary distraction cannot last, but after ghosts, accusations, and school drama, tactical fantasy may actually be the healthiest thing she has done all week. A sudden noise at the balcony reveals someone climbing toward her room. Mei and the visitor stare at each other in shock. As the investigation arrives at her home without warning, the visitor is Taku, alive and bandaged. Although Mei pretends he is an imaginary twin named Takumi, he exposes the lie from the balcony and bitterly says nobody would worry even if Taku were dead, revealing how low he still feels. Mei drags Taku inside and tells him they have time to continue the conversation. His recovery gives her another chance to learn what happened before the fall. Taku is overwhelmed by Mei's chaotic room, while she shoves aside games and household clutter to make space. The awkward domestic scene lowers his guard more effectively than another interrogation. Once they settle, Taku apologizes and Mei asks him to continue what he tried to explain earlier. She wants the memory behind his accident, not another false confession. Taku complains that kissing him does not allow Mei to escape responsibility, though he admits he expected her to avoid him afterward. Mei answers with embarrassment rather than denial, confirming that their bond has changed. Mei admits she is simply glad Taku survived. When he mentions Sahara, she hugs him impulsively, offering the physical reassurance the unseen boy cannot give. She cautiously asks whether Taku believes in ghosts. He hesitates, then admits that immediately before the fall he saw something impossible. Taku describes Sahara standing nearby in the familiar school jacket, his face dark with rage. He cannot identify whom the ghost was looking toward, but the anger felt unmistakably real. Because of the uniform, Taku recognizes the figure as Sahara, and assumes his friend blames him for the accident. He panics, tries to escape, slips, and falls down the stairs. During the fall, Taku seemed to see his own body bleeding below while Sahara remained beside it. He believed he had died, trapped in a dreamlike space with the friend he feared. Sahara appeared furious and blocked him from crossing farther. The encounter was not an attack. The ghost was desperately preventing Taku from dying. Taku remembers Sahara grabbing him, then pain exploding through his head. When he opened his eyes, he was alive in the hospital. Now confined at home until he can return to school, Taku struggles to reconcile the terrifying vision with Sahara's kindness. The ghost looked angry, but his actions saved him. Mei points out that anyone would appear furious while trying to stop a friend from dying. Taku admits that despite calling himself Sahara's friend, he never truly understood everything the boy felt. Mei asks whether Taku still believes she is investigating for entertainment. When he hesitates, she grabs a cutter and forces him to decide whether he trusts her seriousness. Mei jokingly declares Taku her servant and invokes his promise to take responsibility for the kiss. Taku offers his body, but begs to keep his heart, making it clear that even near a murder mystery, these two can still produce the worst possible romantic dialogue. Mei jokingly declares Taku her servant and invokes his promise to take responsibility for the kiss. Taku offers his body but desperately asks to keep his heart, turning their new alliance into another absurd argument. Once the comedy fades, Mei asks the question beneath everything. Did Taku actually dislike Sahara? His silence shows that friendship and resentment existed together. Taku says Sahara at least saved Ren from bullying, which should make him a good person. Yet Taku had spent elementary and middle school isolated, unable to protect her himself, so Sahara's heroism also peaks for a source of shame. Entering the same high school as Ren made Taku genuinely happy. He hoped for another chance to stand beside her, even though he still lacked the courage to approach. Soon after school began, Sahara recognized Taku and casually inserted himself into his life. Taku tried to ignore him, but Sahara refused to accept the distance. Sahara kept talking, asked to see Taku's manga, and joked about everything from club activities to goldfish. The relentless friendliness slowly recreated the ease of their elementary school days. Soon after high school begins, Sahara recognizes Taku and casually forces his way back into his life. Taku tries to ignore him, but Sahara treats personal boundaries like optional side quests. Taku eventually asked whether Sahara wanted to stop being friends, arguing that someone talented and popular should spend time with better people. Sahara could not understand why friendship needed such qualifications. Sahara had been a famous soccer player in elementary and middle school, talented enough to be scouted even after moving districts. Taku believed abandoning that gift was an unforgivable waste. Sahara explained that he only wanted soccer as a hobby and preferred time outside the club. Taku, meanwhile, intended to join the manga club, and the two imagined supporting each other's interests. Taku wanted to create a manga that would cheer Sahara, but the central heroine again resembled Ren. His gratitude toward one friend remained inseparable from his love for the other. Sahara loudly praised the manuscript, proposed making copies, and even dreamed of magazine publication. His enthusiasm was genuine, but it exposed Taku's private feelings in front of everyone. Sahara loudly praises the manuscript, proposes making copies, and starts dreaming about publication. His excitement is sincere, but he exposes Taku's feelings in front of everyone with the social delicacy of a collapsing bookshelf. Others pulled them apart while Sahara shouted that the manuscript was precious and demanded to know what Taku was doing. Taku heard only public exposure, not the pride behind Sahara's words. The surrounding students laughed at the spectacle and called Taku strange. Sahara laughed too, believing the incident harmless, while Taku felt the entire room turn against him. Sahara insisted the manga mattered, and said Taku could simply have refused to share it. To Taku, that answer proved Sahara never understood how terrifying rejection and ridicule felt. Taku screamed that his own feelings did not matter. Ren was the one who would be hurt. The manga had transformed her childhood trauma into entertainment, without her consent. He explained that Ren began suffering vicious rumors after protecting him in elementary school. Knowing that trauma, Taku still drew her as a heroine and allowed Sahara to expose it again. Sahara finally asked whether his actions were bad. The innocent question stunned Taku because it revealed that Sahara truly had not recognized the damage he caused. Taku admitted that drawing the manga was his responsibility, but Sahara's public celebration also hurt people. Good intentions did not erase the result. Sahara walked away in silence, and Taku understood that the accusation had reached him. Neither boy knew how to repair the friendship after such an honest wound. After that day, Sahara avoided the subject, and the classmates eventually stopped teasing. Taku could have remembered him as a reckless but kind boy if the confrontation had ended there. Instead, Taku concluded that Sahara survived by occupying the role of the good guy, while the feelings of injured people were quietly killed. Ren continued suffering, and Taku felt powerless to help as long as she still loved Sahara. Mei listens as Taku admits he still resents Sahara despite mourning him. The confession shows how love, jealousy, and anger can coexist inside friendship without making the grieving person a killer. The conversation leaves Mei's chest aching. Taku's account has transformed Sahara from a simple victim into a boy whose kindness and carelessness wounded people at the same time. On July 26th, the focus shifts to Kenta at soccer practice. As he pushes himself across the field, old memories continue to surface around the coming inter-high tournament. A teammate tells Kenta to stop resting because their first inter-high match will be held nearby. Everyone expects the ace to return at full strength and carry the team. Kenta is scolded for missing morning practice and drifts into memories of Michi. He once believed club soccer was the best place for him, while Sahara could enjoy the sport without surrendering his freedom. Kenta wakes from a dream about the accident and apologizes for worrying the people around him. His injured leg and restless expression show that the past is affecting both his body and his performance. While being treated, Kenta remembers Taku's description of Sahara as clever and positioned as a good person. He thinks about Sahara's manga encouragement and his abandoned soccer talent, uncertain which version was real. Sahara wonders whether Ren truly hated what he did and whether that pain could explain the collision. Looking to Michi for reassurance, he struggles to accept that good intentions can still leave serious wounds. Sahara stands close enough to Kenta to touch him, but his words cannot cross the distance between life and death, or whatever strange boundary he currently occupies. Kenta senses only an unexplained uneasiness near the field. Kenta's injured leg suddenly gives way during training. Sahara shouts a warning that no one hears as teammates rush over and inspect the painful fall. The coach orders Kenta to the nurse's office and offers to send Maruyama with him. Kenta refuses assistance and limps away alone, determined not to appear weak before the tournament. Sahara asks Michi why she will not accompany her injured brother and why she keeps returning to the intersection. Michi watches Kenta leave, but remains bound to the place where she died. Kenta enters the infirmary and is surprised to find Chiaki there. She calmly prepares bandages, turning their unexpected meeting into an opportunity to revisit the past. Chiaki scolds Kenta for treating the wound himself until it became infected. As she bandages him, she admits that careless injuries once caused problems for her too. She notices how exhausted Kenta looks and tells him to rest. The concern sounds sincere, though both of them are avoiding the subject that truly connects them. Chiaki finishes wrapping the leg while their conversation circles without progress. Kenta finally asks why she approached him after so many years of silence. Chiaki says she was surprised but happy when he entered the same high school. Although she claims she did not come specifically to help or reconnect, she wants some link to the people she knew 10 years ago. Kenta explains that he entered on a scholarship because his family could not afford tuition. Soccer gave him no real choice, and Chiaki remarks that he has changed from the carefree boy she remembers. Kenta answers that 10 years change everyone. Sahara seemed unchanged on the surface, but even the people who looked carefree were carrying things the others could not see. The conversation pauses as both remember the accident that separated their childhood group. Neither is willing to name the responsibility hanging between them. Kenta's mother suddenly arrives after hearing about his leg. She was already visiting the school and immediately treats the injury as evidence that something serious has happened again. Michi's unseen consciousness recoils from Kenta's mother and calls her a murderer. The accusation reflects the child's fear and memory, not an objective verdict, but it proves the family is tied deeply to the old accident. The woman blames Chiaki for what happened to Michi, while Kenta insists she had nothing to do with his current injury. Her accusation exposes an old family wound that has never healed. Mei reveals that she overheard part of the exchange, then jokes that she only caught the praise about how much Kenta has grown. Kenta knows perfectly well that subtlety has never been one of Mei's supernatural gifts. Mei reveals that she overheard part of the exchange, joking that she only caught the praise about how much Kenta has grown. Kenta knows she heard enough to continue investigating. Swallowing his pride, Kenta begs Mei to stop digging into him, Chiaki and Sahara. His plea is driven by fear that the old tragedy will destroy everyone again. Mei answers with disgust at Kenta's secrecy. To her, demanding silence while Sahara's accident remains unexplained is more frightening than any ghost. The two stare at each other without compromise. Kenta wants the past buried, while Mei believes silence has already caused too many victims. Because of the recent accidents, families and teachers order students to walk home in groups. The new precautions show how fear has spread far beyond Sahara's class. Mei's friends complain about ghost rumors and tease her about how delighted her occult-obsessed father must be. She argues back, unable to admit that for once her father's ridiculous profession may be genuinely useful. One girl claims that when people die, the wind carries away whatever remains of them. Mei challenges the idea, and the conversation turns toward whether ghosts are memories, souls, or merely stories. Standing beside them, Sahara insists that parts of him are still here. His unseen protest proves that death has not erased either his will or the consequences of his actions. Sahara admits that some memories have faded and that he cannot recall everything he did. Even so, he remains certain of one fact. Chiaki pushed him into the road. He does not seek revenge. If something he did drove Chiaki mad, he can accept his own death, but he refuses to let anyone else die or allow her crimes to continue. He begs Mei to believe him and stop her. Mei senses the force behind Sahara's plea, even though the words arrive only through signs and intuition. His purpose is no longer exposing a killer for himself. It is protecting the living. The quiet moment binds Mei more firmly to the investigation. Whatever doubts remain about evidence, she cannot ignore the fear of another preventable death. The story returns to childhood, when adults praised young Kenta as the elementary soccer team's leader and predicted a professional future. Michi stood nearby, receiving little attention beside the celebrated son. Someone invites Michi to play soccer with her brother, but she rejects the idea and complains that Kenta is not cute at all. The childish insult hides her growing resentment. Their mother orders Michi back to preschool, tells her not to fight, and repeatedly demands that she behave. Michi runs away instead of obeying another command. The mother sighs that Kenta is obedient and wonders why Michi cannot be the same. Every comparison pushes the girl forth from both her family and her brother. Michi protests that Kenta always receives new equipment while she cannot even have a magical girl toy. Her mother explains that soccer supplies are necessary, but the distinction feels like favoritism to a child. When the mother offers to replace Michi's shoes later, the girl first agrees to wait, then rejects the compromise. What she wants is not another object, but proof that she matters equally. Michi finally shouts that she does not need Kenta and wishes someone else were her big brother. The cruel words strike at the sibling who has been praised in her place. Sahara asks whether Michi truly dislikes her brother and reminds her that Kenta is important. She avoids answering directly, clinging instead to the friends who make her feel chosen. Sahara and Chiaki explain that only children envy Michi for having a sibling. Michi insists she wants to play with both her friends and Kenta, and it becomes clear that love and jealousy coexist inside her. Michi protests that Kenta always receives new equipment, while she cannot even get a magical girl toy. Her mother explains that soccer supplies are necessary, but to a child that logic sounds suspiciously like your brother matters more. 10 days before Sahara's apparent death, old accusations about Michi's accident erupt again. Witnesses claim Chiaki saw the hit and run, but remained silent, while others insist she pushed Michi herself. Kenta declares that the fault was his because he told Michi he did not need her and left her alone. His guilt has survived 10 years, shaping every decision he makes around Chiaki and the crossing. In the present, school staff chase younger children off the soccer grounds. The interruption introduces former players who remember the tournament held on the day Michi was struck and fell into her long coma. The older boys joke about children and their own failures while recalling how elementary students once freely played soccer there. Their memories lead back to Kenta's last important match. They explain that an accident occurred nearby during the tournament, and Kenta withdrew partway through. Without their leader, the team lost, though few knew the victim was his sister. After Kenta left, Sahara desperately cheered the team, but they became disorganized, conceded repeatedly, and ended with an own goal. Angry players blamed the boy responsible, adding another layer to the day's trauma. A teammate tells Kenta that his disappearance affected many people, then clarifies that he is not accusing him. What matters is that Kenta remains important and must stop treating himself as replaceable. Kenta insists that daily practice will earn his regular position again and heads to have the injury checked. The coach quietly asks Maruyama to stay behind, concerned about more than the damaged leg. The field empties as the conversation shifts away from Kenta. His determination has impressed everyone, but the pressure surrounding him remains dangerously unresolved. Maruyama is asked whether he wants to continue soccer. He admits the sport is exhausting, and that he repeatedly thinks about quitting, even after returning to the team. Taku compares that feeling to drawing manga. He constantly believes his work is terrible and wants to stop, yet excitement wakes him in the middle of the night and forces him to continue. Passion can survive alongside doubt. On his way back, Taku collides with Kenta and nearly falls. Kenta recognizes Sahara's bespectacled friend and is shocked that the injured boy has already left home. Taku explains that he is only attending checkups and should return to school next week, though he wants to test himself sooner. Kenta watches him shiver and wonders what kind of person ignores recovery so completely. The return date overlaps with the nearby inter-high match, which ordinary students must attend. Taku encourages Kenta to speak with Chiaki, believing she carries more responsibility for the old accident than anyone realizes. Kenta reflects on the freedom other people imagine he possesses. In reality, expectations from parents, teachers, and teammates have controlled him since childhood, and he envies anyone allowed to choose an ordinary path. Voices repeat that Kenta is important, the ace and destined for professional soccer. The pressure becomes a suffocating chorus, while Taku's deliberately crude manga represents the freedom to create something without serving expectations. When Mei searches beneath the stairs, Kenta suddenly grabs her and pulls her into hiding. She immediately demands to know whether the embrace is necessary, because apparently even secret traumas comes with awkward romantic staging. Kenta admits rumors about him spread because he was famous, and Taku accepts the explanation. Their brief honesty creates an unexpected connection between two boys who knew different sides of Sahara. Before parting, Kenta asks Taku to keep a secret. The request concerns Michi and the truth he has hidden since childhood. Kenta explains that the girl from the old accident was his sister, and that her spirit still appears at the crossing. Sahara listens nearby as the living finally acknowledge Michi's continuing presence. Kenta has been visiting the hospital and crossing almost every day, partly because going there once helped him survive the guilt. He still has things he wants to say to Michi, but cannot reach her. Mei later corners Aoi and demands the entire conversation with Kenta at once. Her impatience hits him so hard that he can barely organize the sensitive information before she asks the next question. Aoi refuses to betray everything Kenta said because it was shared in confidence. Mei protests that secrecy is useless when she already senses the outline of the truth. Their argument circles around whether ghosts, magic, or a specific location could connect Kenta and Michi. Neither has enough evidence, but the crossing remains the center of every path. Michi quietly signals that they should return the next day. Her response suggests she may finally be willing to communicate about the accident. Students travel by bus to the inter-high venue, complaining that attendance is mandatory despite summer vacation. While others gossip about Kenta, Mei thinks of the soccer match and Michi's unresolved feelings. Michi watches the field and remembers how amazing Kenta was as a child. She imagines where she might be if she had continued beside him, then pulls herself back from the impossible thought. Michi looks down at her damaged leg, and briefly worries that she can no longer play soccer. Then remembers the crueler truth. The leg was crushed in the accident, and she has already been dead for 10 years. The realization forces Michi to ask when she truly died. Her body died at the crossing, but her heart may have been killed earlier, when blame, rejection, and loneliness convinced her she no longer belonged anywhere. A memory returns from the tournament, where frustrated players blamed Sahara for an own goal and told him he should have practiced instead of fooling around. The accusation became another moment when friendship turned into guilt. The present day feels exactly like that tournament morning. Michi remembers coming to watch Kenta's big moment and jokes bitterly that standing unseen beside the field now makes her a literal ghost in the audience. At the crowded venue, students complain about buying water, standing in line, and following Chiaki's strict directions. While everyone treats the match like an annoying school event, Chiaki begins looking unwell in the heat. Chiaki suddenly collapses, and Ren catches her before she hits the ground. The others suspect heatstroke and tell her to rest, revealing how fragile Chiaki's carefully controlled appearance has become. Ren offers her a drink and admits she has never seen Chiaki react this badly to a crowd. Chiaki says busy places have always been difficult, but today the memories attached to the stadium are overwhelming her. When asked why she keeps enduring it, Chiaki says Sahara indirectly protected her. The answer connects her love for him to the guilt that later turned deadly. Ren agrees that Sahara was always helping someone, even when he barely understood the consequences. Both girls admit they loved him, sharing a tenderness that makes the truth behind the accident even harder to face. Sahara's ghost hears the confession and begins recovering another fragment of memory. He wonders what he did to Chiaki, and why a person who loved him came to believe death was the only answer. Inside Chiaki's mind, frustration builds over friends who cannot manage their own lives. She wanted ordinary days filled with laughter, yet convinced herself that she had spent years burdening Sahara and interfering with everyone. When the group looks up, Chiaki has disappeared from the seats. Ren realizes something is wrong and begins searching before the match can start. Sahara tries to follow, but his ghostly body suddenly feels broken and unresponsive, as though an old injury is returning. The pain warns him that the memories around Michi's accident are affecting the dead as well as the living. Mei turns pale at the same moment, alarming her friends. Although the match is about to begin, she senses that the real danger is moving somewhere outside the stadium. Kenta is called toward the field, but the timing recreates the day Michi was struck. That tournament also started late. Moments before he learned something had happened to his sister. Students complain that the scheduled match has not started, while Taku presses Mei to reveal what she is trying to accomplish. He refuses to keep being pushed around without understanding her goal. Mei demands secrecy before answering, and Taku protests that she was the one who forced him into the investigation. Neither truly understands the complete plan, but he reluctantly promises to keep quiet. Mei admits that she no longer knows whether what she sees is reliable or whether she can trust herself. She asks Taku to help interpret the clues, while his suspicion forces her to confront how frightening she appears to others. The tense conversation ends when Ren strikes Taku for another perverted remark. Somehow, one familiar hit restores more normality than all of Mei's investigation plans combined. Taku catches Ren as she loses balance and thanks her, while classmates rush over to make sure both are safe. Their awkward closeness shows how much their relationship has changed since the manga confession. Ren and Taku pull apart in embarrassment after startling one another. Neither can pretend the moment was meaningless, even as they hide behind insults and nervous apologies. A teacher arrives with Kenta and orders the team to prepare. Kenta confirms he can play, pushing every private concern aside because the entire school is waiting for him. The coach calls Kenta essential to the plan because only he can judge the field and deliver accurate passes. The praise echoes childhood, when everyone relied on him while Michi's wishes went unnoticed. Michi remembers wanting to practice and play beside her brother. As Kenta takes the field, she asks what day it is and feels the old tournament pulling her deeper into the past. Kenta tries not to think, but memories pour in as the players line up. He apologizes internally and prepares to perform under the same expectations that shaped his childhood. A sudden gust crosses the field as the whistle approaches. For Michi and Sahara, the wind carries the atmosphere of the day. Everything changed. Kenta suddenly announces that he is dropping out of the match. Coaches and substitutes stare in disbelief, but this time he refuses to let soccer keep him away when Michi may need him. The date, weather, and confusion are almost identical to the tournament held when Michi was struck. Kenta remembers being told that a relative had been in an accident and abandoning the game. Michi finally understands that Kenta left that match because of her and never told anyone how much it cost him. The memory also raises the question of whether Chiaki truly caused the accident. The past resumes with Chiaki telling Sahara that she must meet Michi that day. She goes ahead and orders Sahara to remain behind instead of following her. Sahara complains and asks Chiaki to play with him, but she insists the matter involving Michi cannot wait. She promises they can play after she returns. Chiaki repeats that Sahara must not follow and tells him to stay exactly where he is. Her determination leaves him irritated, but unaware of the danger awaiting Michi. Time passes, the match begins, and Chiaki still has not returned. Sahara realizes that something is wrong and regrets obeying the order to wait. By the time the tournament ends, the team has lost. The sporting defeat becomes meaningless beside the emergency unfolding at the crossing. Sahara races toward the crossing, terrified that every second of hesitation may cost another life. The same fear of arriving too late drives him forward, even though he still does not understand what waits ahead. Back in the present, Taku and Ren discuss whether Mei is safe alone with Chiaki. They both want to speak honestly, and Ren thanks Taku for drawing the manga that helped her understand his feelings. Ren says her childhood decision to protect him was not wrong. She still loves Sahara and will not erase that love, but as long as Taku can believe in himself, she can also accept the feelings connecting them. Taku tells Ren that whatever she eventually says to Sahara is her own choice. He will not demand that she forget the unseen boy or use grief to control her answer. With Kenta and the others absent, Mei and Chiaki finally sit alone. Mei announces that they can now speak properly about Sahara's accident, although she still enters the conversation, convinced it was murder. Mei demands a confession, excuse or denial directly from Chiaki. Instead, Chiaki begins with the illness that kept her away from school, and the news that her grandmother did not have long to live. Chiaki remembers asking her grandmother what death meant. The old woman answered that she wanted to see Chiaki smiling even after they were separated. At the funeral, Chiaki obeyed and smiled, causing relatives to call her strange. She learned that displaying grief correctly mattered more to people than the promise she was trying to keep. Years later, Sahara became Chiaki's new answer to the problem of death and emotion. He gave her a person whose reaction seemed easier to trust than her own. Because Sahara existed, Chiaki met Kenta, Michi, and a wider world beyond her isolated thoughts. Then a phone call from Kenta's family set the day of Michi's accident in motion. Kenta's parents had to work before the tournament and asked Chiaki to stay with Michi. Sahara also needed to attend the match, so Chiaki promised to collect the girl after her magical girl anime ended and warned her to remain away from the road. Chiaki kept delaying until the episode ended, then the preview, then the next program's song. Each small excuse felt harmless, but together they left Michi waiting alone at the crossing. When Chiaki finally arrived, she saw the aftermath. The image of Michi on the road became the memory she spent years refusing to face. Chiaki froze and did not know how to react or report the accident. Kenta later demanded to know why she took so long, and her silence made everyone suspect something worse. Adults accused Chiaki of pushing Michi and lacking normal sadness, while others begged her not to force an expression. The child could not explain that shock had emptied her before grief could appear. Chiaki decided the accident was her fault and promised to care for Michi for the rest of her life, no matter how long recovery took. She built her future around a girl who would never wake. When Michi failed to wake, and the adults treated recovery as nearly impossible, the children could not accept it. Chiaki used their magical girl story and claimed Mitan had gone to a magical country instead. She insisted that only chosen people could go there and told everyone to smile rather than mourn. The fantasy protected the children temporarily, while preventing them from speaking honestly about death. Michi's family moved away and demanded secrecy, even from Sahara. Chiaki was told to forget that Michi had become a magical girl, turning silence into the rule that governed the next 10 years. Kenta disappeared soon after the accident, and Chiaki never learned what he knew. She remained trapped between the official secret and her own uncertainty about what she should have done. People praised Chiaki's airheaded sweetness and imagined Sahara would always protect her. She envied that carefree image, wondering whether Michi might have survived if Sahara had been present instead. Chiaki vowed to change and begin answering problems herself, yet when children trapped a familiar cat in an empty ditch, she again froze between obeying them and doing what seemed kind. She asked Sahara for guidance, but her explanation was confused. He said releasing the cat might be right without fully understanding the situation, and Chiaki treated the uncertain suggestion as an answer. The children returned and found the animal gone. Chiaki realized that following another person's vague advice would not protect her from responsibility. Officials from the health center took the cat away, and classmates blamed Chiaki for releasing it. She defended herself by saying she had discussed the decisions with Sahara, but he barely remembered doing so. Sahara responded coldly, denying responsibility and becoming angry at Chiaki. She ran away, believing she had failed again, and that the person she trusted had abandoned her. Chiaki remembers fleeing, while convinced that the cat's fate was entirely her fault. Fear prevented her from explaining what had happened, or asking anyone for help. Sahara accused her of being unable to do anything alone and using her airheaded personality as a way to shift blame. The words struck directly at the insecurity created by Michi's accident. Chiaki apologized repeatedly and insisted Sahara was not at fault, but his anger continued. She begged him to stop because she no longer knew how to make any decision without hurting someone. She connected every painful event, Ren's bullying, Taku's manga, and Michi's accident, to her own failures. If she left people alone and something happened, she believed the blame would always return to her. Chiaki says Sahara only became that angry once, and wonders whether he had discovered Michi's accident. Sahara's ghost realizes he could not have known, because Chiaki and Kenta kept the truth hidden. The revelation shocked Sahara. He spent years beside them, without learning that Michi had been struck and never awakened. His own collision occurred inside a history everyone had concealed from him. The recovered memories leave Sahara speechless. His certainty about Chiaki remains, but the motive is no longer the simple hatred he imagined. Mei watches Chiaki struggle to continue. The confession has reached the point where old guilt became fear, secrecy, and the behavior Sahara later interpreted as an attempt on his life. Chiaki admits she did not want to recognize the truth because she had told Michi to wait alone. She was terrified that the accident existed because of her delay. Chiaki concluded that Michi's condition was her fault, and that she might hurt anyone she approached, including herself. To avoid causing more damage, she stopped facing people honestly, and hid behind the harmless identity others expected. Chiaki's guilt is finally exposed. Her lies, threats, and harmful choices remain wrong, but the story no longer claims she deliberately tried to kill Sahara. Beneath them is a frightened child who never processed Michi's accident. Sahara finds himself facing Michi inside the roaring wind and asks whether everything was his fault. As the current grows louder, he begs Mitan to answer before she is carried beyond his reach. A violent current tears across the stadium as Sahara finally reaches Michi's fading consciousness. She stands alone beyond the wind, forcing him to crawl toward the child whose pain has shaped everyone around him. Mei admits that neither she nor Chiaki truly saved the people they wanted to protect. She still cannot define the right choice, but her uncertainty hardens into one decision. She must act before another life disappears. Mei declares that she has something left to do. At that moment, Taku arrives breathless, reporting that Kenta skipped the match and was seen leaving in a taxi, most likely racing toward the hospital. Taku accidentally reveals the reason for Kenta's panic by wondering whether Michi's condition has worsened. Ren and Mei immediately catch the name, and his attempt to hide the secret collapses in front of them. Pressed about Mitan, Taku admits he was not protecting the truth from Sahara, so much as avoiding what happened after Sahara vanished. He tries to leave, but Mei grabs him before he can escape again. Taku calls himself an outsider, who has no right to decide what anyone should do. Mei refuses that excuse, drags him back, and demands the information he has been withholding from Sahara's friends. Taku confesses that he only wanted to support Sahara and feared betraying Kenta and Chiaki. Mei fixes him with a cold stare and forces him to answer instead of hiding behind good intentions. The truth finally emerges: Michi never died. The collision caused catastrophic head trauma and a 10-year coma. While her condition became critical again on the same day Sahara was struck. After Sahara's accident, Kenta began seeing what he believed was Michi's ghost and realized her body was failing. His family kept her condition secret, but Taku believes Chiaki must reach the hospital before Michi's final moments. Inside the roaring darkness, Sahara finds Michi, trapped at the crossing in the form she had when the car hit her. She cannot hear him, and the wind is already pulling at the fragile world around her. Sahara starts blaming Chiaki for arriving late, but his own words expose the habit poisoning his memory. Every painful choice became someone else's fault. Whatever happened behind him, leaping into the road was still his decision, not Michi's burden. Mei's voice cuts through the wind and calls Sahara a lying bastard. She asks whether he died only to dump his resentment on Michi, turning their first direct conversation into the confrontation he desperately needed. Stunned that Mei can hear him, Sahara demands an explanation. She says his voice traveled inside the wind, and Taku's clues, combined with her father's cryptic warnings, taught her where to listen. Mei stopped relying on her eyes and trained her ears instead. Sahara's voice emerged as a blurred current filled with excuses, confirming that she can hear the consciousness of people hovering close to death. Michi is surrounded by a deafening storm that even Mei cannot approach. The noise is stronger than ever, warning them that the force carrying dying consciousness away has begun closing around her. Mei orders Sahara to face Michi while there is still time. He must look at her, listen to everything she has carried alone, and give her his own honest words before the wind separates them forever. Sahara insists it is too late, and that he cannot reach her through the storm. Mei silences him immediately, refusing to let fear become one more excuse for abandoning Michi. Mei repeatedly shouts for Michi to wait and not move. Those commands pierce the noise and awaken the exact words that once kept the little girl frozen at the crossing. The order drags Michi back to the day she was told to stay where she was. She remembers waiting obediently, only to be left alone while Sahara later became angry over a promise she never understood. Michi says she waited all that time, but nobody returned and no voice reached her. She sensed someone like Sahara once, yet he vanished again, leaving only the endless sound of wind. Terrified, Michi says she does not want to go anywhere because she was told to wait. With no one beside her and no answer she can trust, even her thoughts begin breaking apart. Sahara finally calls her Mi-tan. His familiar voice reaches the lonely child at last, and he apologizes for arriving years too late to keep the promise she never stopped obeying. Sahara breaks through the darkness and embraces Michi, repeating her name until she recognizes him. He praises her for waiting so faithfully, even though that loyalty trapped her in fear for 10 years. Sahara apologizes for making her wait, but Michi believes Chiaki and everyone else hate her because she was selfish and caused trouble. Her guilt has survived as completely as her loneliness. Sahara rejects that belief without hesitation. Nobody hates Michi. Kenta, Chiaki, her parents and everyone she left behind have continued holding her precious in their hearts. Relief finally reaches Michi. She says she wants to return to everyone and has one truth of her own to deliver. Despite all the fear and waiting, she still loves them. Before Sahara can answer, the wind violently tears him away from Michi. He stretches out his hand as the distance opens between them, unsure whether their final words were enough to bring either of them home. Back in the hospital, Sahara's motionless body responds. His fingers twitch beneath the blanket, then his eyes open for the first time since the collision. Sahara wakes confused and remembers the wind that seemed to carry away the dead. He finally understands that he was never a ghost at all. Both he and Michi were disembodied consciousnesses, struggling to return to living bodies. Ignoring tubes, wounds, and weakened legs, Sahara tears himself from the bed and crawls toward the door. He refuses to remain still while Michi's fate is still unknown. Pain stops Sahara on the floor, where he sobs that his message reached Michi, but arrived far too late. He still had countless things to tell her, and now he can only hope she heard enough. Ren and the others discover Sahara awake and explode into tears. Ren throws herself around him so tightly that he can barely breathe, while everyone shouts for a nurse and struggles to believe the miracle. Sahara tries to explain that Michi is alive, but his broken sentences about fault and dying send the room into greater panic. He finally shouts the only fact that matters: Michi is still alive. Ren confirms that Michi's body has stabilized and reassures Sahara that there is no need to fear the worst. Overwhelmed, he cries that he can hardly believe both of them survived. The friends collapse together on the hospital floor, repeating that Sahara and Michi are alive. Months of grief finally release at once, leaving nothing but tears, shaking breaths in relief. A nurse reports that Michi is no longer in critical condition, though she remains unconscious. Chiaki sits beside her bed and cries quietly, finally allowed to wait for a future instead of another death. Months later, graduation season arrives. As the principal tells the students that life continues beyond high school, Sahara's friends prepare to carry their unfinished bonds into the future. The classmates wish Sahara could stand beside them for the graduation photograph. He never returned to regular classes after waking, but Ren promises to visit him and include him in the celebrations another way. Their teacher gives Ren Sahara's graduation certificate. Special reports allowed him to complete school from the hospital, confirming that staff had continued receiving private medical updates, even while classmates believed the worst. Sahara's parents had asked the school not to announce uncertain signs of recovery because doctors could not promise he would wake. In the silence, rumors hardened into certainty, and the class built a memorial around what they believed had happened. Ren urges Chiaki to visit the hospital, explaining that Sahara may already be in Michi's room. After a quiet hesitation, Chiaki heads inside to face the two people at the center of her guilt. Mei skips the graduation ceremony and finds Sahara alone in Michi's room. Nearly a year has passed since they last spoke directly, and she insists this private conversation matters more than school formalities. Mei immediately notices how much Sahara's life now revolves around Ren. She mocks his pajamas and asks whether the girl nursing him is really the same fierce Ren he once knew. Mei immediately mocks Sahara for being nursed by his new girlfriend, while he remembers only the humiliations of hospital treatment. Their crude banter is basically affection wearing combat armor, and both are far too stubborn to admit the relief underneath. Sahara reveals that Taku reacted badly to the relationship and began visiting with a hidden box cutter. Mei calls him greedy. Apparently, Taku can win a manga award before he learns how not to look like a jealous criminal. Sahara fires back that Mei still meets Taku to help with manuscripts. Both insist they are only friends with such suspicious speed that the argument practically answers itself, and Mei finally congratulates him on dating Ren. Beneath the jokes, Sahara admits he doubts whether dating Ren was fair. Rehabilitation leaves him irritable and dependent, and he fears she stays from pity while he avoids facing their former classmates. Mei reminds Sahara that nearly a year has passed since he reached Michi during the inter-high match. Because only a few people know what truly happened, she proposes that they finally compare their answers. Flowers are still left for Sahara because the wider public never received a clear update about his survival. Mei admits that outsiders could not possibly understand either accident when even the people involved spent months misunderstanding them. Mei explains that she never saw ordinary ghosts. Her ability revealed the consciousness of people whose bodies were close to death, which is why Sahara and Michi appeared after their conditions worsened. When a consciousness cannot return, a wind gradually carries it away. Sahara woke before that happened, and Michi's spirit also remains connected to her body, though nobody knows when she will awaken. Mei condemns her investigation as a hunt for a murderer who may never have existed. Believing she saw ghosts, she assigned people the roles of culprit and victim before they understood their memories, guilt, or incomplete perceptions. She compares herself to Chiaki. Both wanted to save someone, failed, then hurt people who were already suffering. Mei fears her half-formed justice only deepened wounds that were never hers to judge. Even so, Mei wanted Sahara and Michi to face each other before either died, and that encounter may have helped them return. She asks whether interfering was crueler than allowing them to disappear. Sahara answers without hesitation. Whatever mistakes surrounded it, Mei brought them together when no one else could, and helping them returns was the right thing to do. Satisfied, Mei leaves before the classmates arrive, claiming karaoke is preferable to an emotional crowd. She restores their usual rhythm with one final joke about an old ghost hiding in the room. Because sincerity apparently requires an escape route, Sahara invites Mei back and proposes a double date with Ren and Taku. She denies dating Taku so fiercely that Sahara wisely lets the evidence speak for itself, while recognizing that beneath her hostility, she is genuinely kind. Sahara reflects that everyone involved was trying to be good in an impossible situation. He has apologized to Chiaki, Kenta, Taku, and Ren, and now focuses on rehabilitation so he can play soccer with Kenta again. Beside the sleeping Michi, Sahara remembers meeting her beneath blooming cherry trees and watching the sunset together. He promises a picnic with Chiaki once he can walk, even if protective Kenta objects. Voices approach the hospital room, interrupting Sahara's private promise. His friends arrive together, bringing graduation news and the ordinary noise of a life that had once seemed permanently lost. Taku proudly announces that Kenta has joined a professional soccer team. Nearby, Chiaki quietly heads toward Michi's room. Since learning the complete truth, she has spent more and more time beside her. Kenta admits Chiaki and Michi were separated partly because of his family's choices. While Chiaki apologizes to him, the conversation then turns to Taku, whose manga has won a Rookie of the Year award. Spring petals drift over everyone as their separate futures begin. Taku clutches his published work, Ren smiles openly, Kenta carries flowers, and the others move forward with memories that no longer control every step. Chiaki walks alone through the quiet hospital corridor and stops outside Michi's room. After years of fear and avoidance, she gathers the courage to open the door herself. Chiaki knocks and asks whether Sahara is already inside. Before anyone answers, a weak voice calls Sahara's name from the bed, and Chiaki freezes as she realizes Michi is speaking. The sound breaks Chiaki's composure. Tears flood her eyes, and she covers her face as 10 years of guilt, grief, and waiting collapse into the realization that Michi has finally awakened. Chiaki whispers Mitan's name through her tears. Sahara sits nearby in his wheelchair as Michi looks toward them, allowing the three survivors to meet in the same living world at last. Sunlight fills the hospital room as Sahara, Michi, and Chiaki remain together. No perfect answer erases the past, but the words they kept buried have finally reached the people who needed to hear them.